Well, hi, folks, and welcome back to Naturally Adventurous. Charlie and I are sort of making up for missed time here. I was on a family trip. I won't call it a vacation for 2 weeks, and we actually had quite a few emails and other messages from folks who missed the podcast. So that was nice to hear. It's definitely we're happy to hear from people anytime. Ideas for future episodes or feedback, positive or negative or whatever. But the feedback we got from folks inspired us to try to get 2 episodes out this week. So we're going to return to Charlie's top 10 lifetime mammal sightings. Any updates about what you've been up to, Charlie, before we get into the mammals?
It's been pretty quiet. I got a nice book in the mail a few days ago.
Bird book, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. I got this All the Birds of the World book. So all the birds of the world are included in one volume with a map and a illustration and lots of other information. It's a book by Lynx. It's basically like a distilled version of this huge Handbook of Birds of the World 17-volume set, which I have on my bookshelf on the other side of the world.
In South Africa.
In South Africa for years. So yeah, it's nice to have this thing. So I've been very lovingly stroking its pages and taking myself back to past trips and just taking a little pencil and gently checking off all these birds that I've seen in the past year. It's been very nice, bit of nostalgia.
I love books. I was just thinking there's a great smell to a new book, but there's also a great smell to an old book. This kind of like mildly moldy smell is great, but the new book smell is like, ooh. And those slick Lynx pages, oof.
But my son is also very keen to look through it, but he'd only been turning a few pages and he ripped a page already.
Oh.
So, yeah, just a little bit, but no, I had to give him a little lesson in how to gently turn pages.
It's interesting. I've heard that the sort of field guide natural history segment is one of the few segments of the book business that's still doing fairly well. And there is something about physical books that when you're sort of studying for a place you haven't been or maybe checking off past sightings, it's not the same having an ebook or an app. It's really not the same. There's some advantages, but
that might be sort of telling our age a little bit there. I was listening to a podcast the other day made by some young birders, and they were sort of talking about, back in the day when people used to use bird books and things like that. Like, wait a minute.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, he was saying, it's all apps and stuff now, and everything's on you. I was like, no. The books are still alive and kicking. But to have it in your hand and flick through the pages, and I loved getting to that point where you know a book so well that you can just very quickly flick to a bird. In a place like Thailand, you'll have like 1,000 species, and you'll just and then you're on the page right away without any. Yeah, it's a very satisfying feeling, eh?
It is. That was one of the first things I sort of tried to master as a young birder. That was before I realized that the order of families and whatever is just constantly shifting drastically, with seemingly no end in sight.
I think it's probably one of the reasons why people sort of resist these name changes and order changes, because it just kind of messes up this order that you have in your head of where you're going to find the birds in the book.
Well, there was this article done by Steve Howell and a few other folks more than 10 years ago now, I guess, or around 10 years ago, which was proposing a field guide order that's stable and that's really based on similarities in appearance rather than underlying genetics. And so the books I've done, like the sea watching book that I did, which is a field guide, I followed that order. Future books I plan to use that order, like the Madagascar bird book I'm working on. I think that's the way forward, is the taxonomy side, fascinating, illuminating, but this sort of stable order for field guides is the way to go. And I notice a lot of other folks have adopted that as well.
Yeah, but some people go with the flow, eh? I know, who was it? I think the Roberts book for Africa, you took the IOC order, and they had the falcons next to the parrots, just before the passerines, and it's and having studied all these taxonomic changes in order, you go through it, it's quite clear in my head now. So that's what I'm thinking. But to have to sort of bring it back to the old order is a bit of a. But I think in general for people that's probably very true. That I think that would be most popular to keep the order as is.
I think it's quite unfriendly to sort of beginning birders when you with something like swifts and swallows are
Swifts and swallows,
30% of the book
yeah.
apart. It's just very user
Yeah.
unfriendly. And assuming that people are going to sort of keep up on all this taxonomic stuff in order to competently use their field guide, I don't think it's the way to go. I think you want to make field guides as
No.
accessible as they can possibly be.
Yeah. But not by color.
Oh boy, it's been tried. It doesn't go well. Please don't try this again.
Yeah, I tried to look at, somebody showed me this book, and it's amazing, you can really easily find the birds, and I looked through and I was just scratching my head. It was perfect. Anyway.
Not on. Yeah, we could probably do a whole episode about bird books or natural history books at some point. But we keep swearing we're going to do a short episode, and we haven't really succeeded.
Should we get stuck in?
Let's get into it. So we did your 10th, 9th, and 8th Lifetime Mammals last time, and we're going to do, I guess, at least 2 more today. We'll see how it goes. So looking at your list here, your number 7 Lifetime Mammal is Dhole, which is an Asian wild dog. A bit like a dingo, I guess, in appearance.
They're strange things. So those that have birded or been on wildlife trips in Africa, how many mammals you see, and you'll see lions and you'll see leopards and whatever, and then you sort of go somewhere like South America or Asia. People that do like a lot of trips, you really realize how you'll have a mammal book or whatever, or a mammal list on a checklist, and you realize how difficult it is to see a lot of the mammals in Asia.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was getting, it's getting into decades now that I'm doing trips in Asia. And this damn dog, this Dhole, or the Asian wild dog, it just kept eluding me. And it would be fine if it was eluding everyone else as well, but it wasn't.
It's really not that rare or restricted range of a mammal. It's all over the place. It's regularly seen in a lot of different parks, especially in India.
It's gettable. And what really irked me was some people that were sort of coming and doing nature trips in Asia for the first time, or hadn't done many trips, and they were seeing it, and I still was missing this thing after decades and decades of solid wildlife hunting. So it was always a thorn in my side, this thing. There's one park in Thailand especially where people often see it, called Khao Yai. There's like a reservoir there, and they come in to drink sometimes. But the problem, because I know you had a similar experience with the African wild dogs.
Yeah, it may well feature prominently in my top 10.
Coming soon. But, they just roam around. They don't have a small territory where, there's always a good chance to see them. You can just, you just need to be lucky and just come across some. And it just was never happening. And I missed them in India, missed them in Thailand, just constantly. As a guide, you have some sort of your favorite clients. And some of my favorite clients is this Canadian couple. And I think you probably know who I'm talking about. I won't mention them by name, but we go way back. I think I've almost done close on 10 trips with them, private trips. They're fantastic. And they're incredibly lucky with mammals.
Mm.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Of course.
Yeah. The lady, she's one of the best people I've ever come across. And I've done tours with thousands of people now. She's one of the best people at spotting things.
Yeah, she has amazing eyes.
Absolutely amazing eyes. And she's very good at spotting things that don't move, especially picking out shapes. But on a trip, she will always just spot something that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Or I just feel that these people now just bring me luck. Even though they're really good at spotting, they're really sharp, they're really keen, they want to just go all day long looking for... They love mammals as well. They, really keen bird watchers. So we always really go hard at it wherever we are, if it's Africa or Asia or South America. And then they wanted to come. They knew that I'd moved to Thailand, and they wanted to come, and we made a plan. And I did a private trip with these people last year. And I was very keen to know what was going to pop up, because I knew, I just felt it in my bones that something was going to pop up. And it started well. We were seeing these like rare animals. We saw this binturong, this huge, big, furry mammals feeding on a fruit tree.
Kind of a badger-like. Yeah,
weird.
It's a great mammal.
Like arboreal, and just a weird thing. And just you've got to be really lucky to see it. What else did we see? We had some other stuff, But we were then in Krachan National Park in sort of central Thailand, which is fantastic. I've been there probably dozens of times now, and every time I go, I see something amazing that I haven't seen before. So it's like a really magical place. And we were there, and we had these long days birding, and then we were just, they closed the park at 6. We were just timing to get to the gate by like 1 minute to 6. And I think we were just sort of on the way out. Actually, no, I think we were driving up and down a road looking for some bird. Was that it? Yeah. And windows open, and I'm just driving along, and I hear this like, and I was like, what? And I pulled up, and I was like, what is that? I'm trying to place the sound, and then I'm looking, and I turn the engine off, and the windows are all down. I stick my head out the window, and I'm looking up in the trees for a bird, and then I hear this thing again, like, and it's not coming from up in the trees. It's sort of on the ground, but inside the trees. So I think we got out of the car, and we're just sort of peering inside the trees, and I see all these movements going backwards and forwards, and we just sort of stand still, and then this pack of dholes just sort of one by one, they kind of come into view between the trees. Wow. And then I see this sort of like a pulling action. They sort of tug, 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 and another one tugging the other way. And we sort of peer inside. We get our bins on them. We get a good position, and we can see that these wild dogs have killed a Sambar deer. Wow. And this is one of the most amazing things about this creature, is that this is sort of like a medium-sized dog, but a Sambar deer is like a huge animal. I mean, it's like many times bigger than one of these dogs.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Sambar is about the size of an elk, maybe slightly smaller, but it is a huge deer.
And these things, I mean, it's not like a wolf or anything, it's like a sort of medium-sized dog, a sort of reddish fur and these sort of black fluffy tail. But I guess they do the same that other canine pack hunting animals do, and they sort of chase. They just exhaust an animal. They just keep going for it, and they take it in turns. One will sort of run it down for a little bit, and then drop back and take a rest, and others will sort of take up the chase.
Yeah, teamwork.
And in the end, their prey just falls over, just absolutely exhausted. But this pack of dogs had managed to take down this Sambar, and it was probably 30, 40 feet from the road. It was a quiet road, there weren't many cars at all, and we were peering in. And these dogs, they were just sort of tugging at this, and then we're trying to get position, and I'm trying to get a few photos, and it was so exciting. And we're thinking, actually, should we be standing out in the open like this? I wouldn't have thought Dhole would be a threat to people, but if you can take down a huge Sambar deer, you could probably take down a human as well.
Without a problem, right?
Yeah, so we were thinking,
it's a place where you can just walk around freely, walk off into the forest. You don't even really think about dangerous mammals in Krachan.
But although it's not, a huge, fearsome looking predator, they are very effective predators, and they can take down large prey. And it was just such a long time coming, eh? Yeah. So, and it was a huge relief. I just felt this just weight lifted off my chest, and just a happiness, and we all got great looks, and it was just became clear what my favorite clients had brought, what luck they'd brought me again. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, there's other mammals going to come a bit later on that they also found for me on a trip, but they're just incredibly lucky people for mammals. We see great birds as well, but we always see something very special. And there's one last bit of the story, which was at that time a sun bear, which is a really rare and very seldom seen animal in Asia, was being seen fairly regularly behind this restaurant. They sort of put all these scraps out. The restaurant would sort of peel all the vegetables and they'd throw them out on the compost heap around the back. And it was being seen occasionally. And one of these people I was with was saying, maybe we should go and look for the sun bear. Last hour of the day, it's probably quite a good time. And I was like, oh, but we were missing a bird that wasn't that. It was our last chance to see this bird. And I thought, no, let's go for this bird. I really feel like we can get it, and he had he had a target of how many birds he wanted to see, and I was really gunning for it. Anyway, we didn't see the bird, And right when he suggested that we be behind the restaurant, the sun bear came out. And we got back there, and there were some other people that we'd been crossing paths with, some other birders, and they just said, "Oh, the sun bear was just here," and they were showing us videos and photos.
So you mean
And I was
it came out, but you weren't there?
So yeah, so my client suggested that we go and wait for it, and I told him that we should go and look for this bird instead. So and bearing in mind that these are these incredibly lucky clients that always find good mammals, I should have just listened very carefully to what he was saying, and I certainly will do in future. But and I went back a few weeks later, and I spent a whole week there. Doing whole night vigils, waiting for this thing. Never saw it. Still haven't seen it.
You didn't have your good luck folks with you.
No, I'm gonna have to invite them back for a cut price tour to Thailand.
Exactly, it should be a heavily discounted price, or maybe you should be paying them for their services.
Yep. But we did get Dhole, and we had great views, and it was decades in the waiting, and I was very, very happy. So that's my number 7.
Number 7, yeah. That's a good story. Well, I'll quickly tell you my Dhole sighting story.
Yes.
That was new for me last year. It hadn't weighed quite as heavily on me. I hadn't spent quite as much time in Asia. It wasn't quite as much on my radar, but it was starting to be something that was like I really wanted to see Dhole. And so I was actually with our friend Keith Barnes in southern India, and we did some late afternoon birding, mainly for grassland birds, for larks and stuff. And we were with a local guide who told us in this very offhand way, like, this hill is very good for Dhole. They often come out around sunset. But this hill, if you see this hill, you're sort of 300 meters above a village. There's kids running around, and there's chickens. And when he said this, I looked at Keith, and we both just like gave a little like, nah. I doubt it. Yeah. And and we stayed out to look for nightjars. You get a couple like Indian nightjar, and that was great. We had nightjar. The first nightjar came out, and just right about that time, the local guide was like, "Oh, I see it! Dhole is coming!" I was like, "No way!" Even when he said it, I just couldn't believe it. And sure enough, a whole pack of Dhole emerged on this little grassy hill. I mean, when they emerged, there was actually a dude standing on top of the hill, like just a local villager. I don't know what he was doing up there. But this is an amazing thing about India, is a lot of wildlife isn't persecuted much, and you often get these wild animals just right next to humans. Ethiopia is like that too. It just blew my mind. So this whole pack of Dhole emerged. There was, I believe, 5 individuals. They must have a den on that hill, some deep rocky cave or something. And they trotted out and off for their night's activities. And then in one of these typical stories, we saw Dhole again the next morning in a completely different place. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, you've broken the seal. It's often that way. Once you've finally found something you've been looking for a long time, you'll just see it again and again. Yeah.
Yep. So it's a great animal. It's a big tawny dog, but very good looking, big ears, and we'll put a photo or two on the episode photo gallery. But on to your number 6, where we're actually aiming for this shorter episode. Or I think it's within sight. So your number 6 lifetime mammal is spectacled bear. Still haven't seen that. It's gripping.
Have you not? It's a mega animal, and there's lots of people who've like guides in South America who've just spent years and years out in the wild and still haven't seen it as well. So it's something that you need quite a bit of luck. Although there have been certain ones that have come into. I think sometimes they put out carcasses for Andean condors and stuff like that. And I remember there was one that was baited in Ecuador once. But yeah, my one was a real genuine sighting. So it goes back to what I was saying about mammals being more difficult to see in Asia and South America especially. I mean, I was a guide for like 2.5 years. I spent about 5 years in South America, and when you would do a trip checklist, you would guide some folks around. especially in northwest Ecuador, you'd be lucky to get, you get a squirrel, maybe one or two mammals. Usually you didn't even do a mammal list.
Right.
But anyway, so back to this couple. This is rewinding a few years to possibly my first tour with them, first or second tour in Ecuador with this wonderful Canadian couple who are very lucky with mammals. And we had this incredible tour. We saw a hell of a lot of birds, but then we also saw some amazing mammals with their luck, and one of them was spectacled bear. And the way it happened, so those that have been to Ecuador may have crossed over from the western side to the east over the Papayacta Pass. You should know that, eh?
Of course.
You've been to
Papayacta? I've got some stories about Papayacta.
Have you? But a wonderful place. The road goes all the way up, and you hit all these beautiful Paramo habitats. And there's a lot of cool birds up there that you don't get lower down. So it's a very cool place. Sometimes you'll go up there, it's just covered in mist. Sometimes sort of blue skies and sunshine, and you can see for miles. So it's a really variable place. But yeah, we had... I'm trying to think if that was the first... Yeah, I think this was maybe the first mammal that we had on the tour. We sort of go down over the top, and then we come down the other side. And I think one of the clients said, look, and the driver pulls up, and this fairly small sort of black ball of fur, it was like it wasn't even that big, nothing like you would imagine a bear to be. It was maybe like half the size of a
big bulky thing how you imagine a
American
bear.
black. Yeah, I think this one was a
cub,
some kind of immature. Maybe like it was on its own, so probably independent, but I think maybe 3/4 grown, something like that.
Right.
And it ran across, and we pulled up fairly close, and it crossed the road in front of us. And on the other side of the road was a really steep bank. And it tried to run up this bank because, it had seen us, and it was sort of hustling to get across. And it went up, and it lost its balance, and it kind of rolled back down this hill. It was hilarious. And it was just like, it looked like he was sort of playing, doing it for fun. And it sort of went up. And then I think it sort of scrabbled its way to the top, and then sort of stopped, and then looked over at us. And we'd sort of by now figured out what this was, and we were like just going nuts in this vehicle. I think we were looking through the front window of the vehicle, but binoculars trained on this thing, and it looked at us, and then it sort of chilled quite a bit, and then it just started very slowly walking through the Paramo, and you could still see its head and back over the little bushes. And I think we all jumped out, and then we're scanning, and then it would sort of go higher up, and then into some thicker stuff, and we would just see occasionally this little black back sort of passing the little bushes, and we watched it for a while, and I just couldn't believe it. I just waited. I'd waited because by this point I think I'd probably spent 3 or 4 years in South America, weeks and weeks at a time in the Andes trekking around. So I'd had so many chances to see this thing before, but to finally have seen it, I just had this real smug feeling and just the feeling of accomplishment, and I was just really, really happy. Yeah, it was great.
It's a little bit like the ground cuckoo that we talked about in your top 10 birds, the banded ground cuckoo.
Uh-huh.
It's one of these, like, have you seen spectacled bear? Oh yeah,
exactly.
Just a couple times.
just drop it in, in casually in conversation. Yeah, it's sort of because it will separate, even the full-time guides that have guided for years and years. Maybe only half of them have seen a spectacled bear or whatever.
Right.
And I remember I think at a point, even the author of the book, Bob Ridgely, hadn't even seen them, and he'd spent 30 years. Yeah, but I think he's seen them subsequently, but. Yeah, it was a wonderful feeling, wonderful warm fuzzy feeling in my chest, and again these people that I was with, we went down and we were just sort of birding on this little more open area, and then this lady says, "Oh, what's that?" And she points it out to us, and there's like do you know what a poodoo is?
Poodoo.
A poodoo is this miniature deer. the incredibly seldom seen these things.
Wow. Like a
And she
muntjac
it's
type,
like a little mouse deer type thing, a little bit bigger.
chevrotain.
And she pointed it out, and it was just like a little head sticking out behind all these big leaves. You wouldn't have seen it because it was standing still. And she'd picked out this little deer's head from all this wall of vegetation. It was absolutely nuts. And then we went down to Cabañas San Isidro, and it turned out at that time they had a mountain tapir coming in to a little salt lick, a little clay lick.
Wow.
They give these little salt blocks to cattle, and they can sort of munch on them a little bit. And they put some of these out, and they'd had this female mountain tapir, which is just another incredibly seldom seen mammal. And this was all within 2 days. When they had a poodoo, a spectacled bear, and then a mountain tapir. And then we went down to the Amazon, and we saw a whole bunch of rare monkeys and stuff like that. So at the end of this South America trip, where you don't normally get many mammals at all, we had this incredible mammal list. So yeah, it was great. So and many of these mammals, the best mammals I've seen in South America, I've seen each one once. And you just treasure that little moment, and you can still see the exact moment imprinted on your brain of when you see this special mammal. So yeah, great. It's what it's all about for me. You put enough time in, you'll finally see stuff.
Absolutely. So was that up at like 13,000 feet? Was it the top of Papiacta, or was it a bit down?
Yeah, it was just a little bit down from the top. I don't know if you remember the first little polylepis patch you get to on the left. There's a little bend in the road, and we would often look for giant conebills there, and a few of the very high elevation forest birds. Just before that, it just crossed over there, and I think there was actually a sign there saying sometimes bears are seen in this area, kind of thing, and it just passed like right by there.
I mean, it's an amazing thing to see a bear at like 12,000 feet in a mountain. I mean, you don't really see bears at that elevation very often in the Western United States or whatever. But South America is just so rich at those higher altitudes. I'll very quickly tell you the story of the first time I went to Papayacta.
Yeah, do.
I'd only been in Ecuador a few days. I'd been sort of stuck in Quito for various reasons. But I was desperate to get out and look for, Papayacta is famous as this place for rufous-bellied seed snipe, which is like the South American ptarmigan, this like fat, round, ground-dwelling bird. Great bird, intricately patterned. So I basically went to the bus station and got the first bus that was headed down that road, which goes to El Oriente, right? It's the access to most of eastern Ecuador. But, I didn't communicate really well, so they didn't understand exactly where I was going. But, it didn't matter. What does it matter? A couple bucks extra. And so, I was on the bus. I was headed in the right direction. And we go up and up and up. I mean, Quito is at, 8,000 feet or something?
It's
pretty
2,700
high.
meters. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost 9,000 feet, but then Papayacta is 13,000, so you're just going up and up and up. And we're basically going up into the clouds, and then it's it's drizzling, and then it's hailing, and it's getting colder and colder, and you see the people kind of putting blankets around their shoulders. Everyone's closing the windows of the bus, and so I'm carefully watching out the window because I have no idea. I have no GPS or anything in those days. I'm looking for the top. I'm just waiting for when the bus stops climbing to know this is where I get out and look for seed snipe.
Yeah.
And finally, I see there's a little chapel there. That's usually a good sign of Racima in South America. And it's like, it looks like the bus has started. Yep, this is the top. And so I kind of grabbed the conductor. Aquí.
Para.
And he was like, aquí? Yeah, sí, aquí.
Aquí?
And he couldn't believe I was getting out of this gringo is getting out of the bus here. It's like, it's hailing. It's got to be below freezing. It's just enveloped in mist, and that entire bus thought I was going to die. I mean, you could see they had like like ashen faces, and like I think some of the women like crossed themselves, and someone said like "Vaya con Dios." It was, and off I went into the Paramo.
To the mist. Yeah.
And I was wearing like a pair of jeans and a long sleeve shirt. I didn't have a rain jacket or, I was down in Quito. It was a different world in terms of weather and temperature, but basically I went birding for a few hours and had a wonderful time. Almost got hypothermia. Saw a seed snipe.
Oh, you got it?
I got it, yeah. And then grabbed another bus back to
walk
Quito.
up quite a bit.
Oh, no, I did. I walked all the way up to those little hills where they normally are.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful time. Wonderful place. It's a very wild, rugged place, Papayacta. It's kind of amazing that a big road goes through there.
It's a wonderful habitat. I love it. And that feeling of the thin air and the cold air hitting your lungs, and sometimes you got a bit of drizzle in your face or wind, and it's really kind of bracing, and I just love it. It's one of my favorite things to be up at high elevation.
Yeah, I miss the Andes. For people who don't know, Paramo is this northern South American and I guess southern Central American habitat that's above tree line, and it's really different than most high elevation habitats around the world. Most of them are sort of grassy alpine tundra type, but Paramo has this high botanical diversity, all these sort of succulent plants. What are those called? The sort of pincushion plants.
They call them there's one called a frailejon. Frailejones. Are those ones with the little velvety leaves, the ones that grow in little towers? Yeah.
It's such a weird habitat botanically and just in terms of the look and feel. You can't really walk around in it. Everything is kind of... It's not like this soft grassy habitat where you can sort of frolic around in a meadow. No, the whole thing is like wet and heavy and kind of immovable. It's really weird, really fascinating, and actually pretty rich in birds too. I mean, you even have an ant pitta up there, which is amazing.
Yeah, there's ant pittas and tapaculos and all sorts of finches and other. Yeah, it's a wonderful place. I want to go there now.
Me too. I've convinced myself I want to be in the Paramo right now.
Yep.
Great. Well, we've got to number 6, so we have 4 more of your mammals left. Looking forward to those.
5 more, I think.
5 more, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Lots of gripping stuff there.
I think we'll probably flip it round and listen to yours. I know you've been struggling to put your list together.
It's been tough. I'll talk about that a bit.
Yeah.
That's the plan for next week. Is we'll kick off my top 10 lifetime mammals. So yeah, well, this is a relatively short episode, but we're doing 2 this week, and we'd love to hear from folks. Any kind of feedback, anytime, and we'll catch you next week.
Don't forget to leave those reviews on iTunes.
Yes, it's a huge help, and quite a few people have, and we really appreciate it. We have a good 5-star rating so far, so much appreciated, folks.
And if anyone listened to the last episode but hasn't yet checked out the photo gallery, I urge you to do it. I looked at it today, and there's some spectacular photos there from Ken's little trip. The scenery shots from up on that mountain that he went to are just absolutely gorgeous, and the habitat shots, and some very cool wildlife photos as well. So definitely take a look at that.
Indeed. Catch you next week. Thanks for listening.
And as our natural sound, we'll play out with the sound of the tawny ant pitta, which is a real typical sound up there on the Paramo at Papayacta, where I saw the bear. And this recording is by Peter Boesman.